Abaddon was originally a term used by the Hebrews to describe something similar to a place of destruction or a bottomless pit. The place is usually mentioned alongside the realm of the dead. As time passed, the notion of Abaddon evolved into a specific entity. By the time the book of Revelation, which is the last book in the Christian Bible, was written in the 1st century AD, Abaddon was referred to as the destroyer or the angel of death. The entity was said to be the king of a plague of mutated locusts that resembled horses with human faces. These locusts also had lion's teeth, long hair, wings, iron breastplates, and a scorpion's tail. A sting from the scorpion tail of the locust was only effective against those who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. But who really is Abaddon, and what is his role? We attempt to answer this question in this video. Revelation chapter 9 verse 11. The angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon or Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. The Hebrew term Abaddon and its Greek equivalent Apollyon and Abbadon appear in the Bible as a place of destruction as well as an angel. In the Hebrew Bible, Abaddon is used in reference to a bottomless pit, often appearing alongside Sheol, which means the land of the dead. In the New Testament book of Revelation, an angel called Abaddon is presented as the king of an army of locusts. His name is first transcribed in Greek, as is written in Revelation chapter 9, verse 11, whose name in Hebrew Abaddon. The word is then translated in Greek Apollyon, where it means the destroyer. The Latin Vulgate, as well as the Douay Rheims Bible, has an additional note which is not present in the Greek texts. These two texts have the note in Latin exterminans. Here, the word exterminans is the Latin word for destroyer. Abaddon is said to be the king of the deep pit, which is the great gathering place of the dead, commonly known as Sheol, or Hell, or the Abyss. Abaddon is also the name given to the angel who, together with Maweth, that is, death, stands over the 6 angels of destruction that help God to punish the wicked. As the power of the prince of the air, Abaddon is God's prosecuting angel that comes out of the bottomless pit on the judgment day. When the 5th trumpet is sounded, Apollyon of Revelation has the dominion over the plague of locusts that resemble horses with crowned human faces, women's hair, lion's teeth, wings, iron breastplates, and a tail with a scorpion's sting that torments anyone who does not have the seal of God on their foreheads for 5 months. In ancient Gnostic texts, such as in the 3rd century Acts of Thomas, Abaddon is the name of a demon or the devil himself. There are two Gnostic texts that explain the role of Abaddon. These are the Enthronement of Abaddon by Pseudo Timothy of Alexandria and the Apocalypse of Bartholomew. In the Enthronement of Abaddon by Timothy, we learn that Abaddon was first named Muriel. God assigned him the task of collecting the earth that would be used in the creation of Adam. When he finished these tasks, the demon of the angel was appointed as a guardian over the spiritual and corporeal realms, which include the angels, demons, and corporeal entities, all who greatly feared him. In Western Christian angelology, the angel Muriel, whose name is derived from the Greek Maya, is a domination or dominion. This means that he is one of the angels in the second sphere. Muriel is the angel of the month of June and is associated with the zodiac sign of Cancer. Abaddon was promised that anyone who venerated him in life could be saved. In the Last Judgment, it is Abaddon who will take away souls to the Valley of Josaphat. In the Apocalypse of Bartholomew, we learn that Abaddon was present in the tomb of Jesus at the moment of his resurrection. It's interesting to note that Apollyon the Destroyer is called the King of Hell and is appointed as the official guardian over all angels, demons, and humans. This shows that he is the most powerful angel in all Christendom and his power was of divine origin. In the book of Revelation, John, the apostle of Jesus Christ, shows that the angel of death is indeed Abaddon. His mention in the Old and the New Testament give a horrifying insight into the role of archangels in the hereafter. John is said to have written the book of Revelation during his exile in the island of Patmos. It was there that he reportedly received a glimpse of the Day of Judgment. It was in this revelation that Abaddon is introduced as the leader of fallen angels. The angel shall lead his fallen angels and wreak havoc to punish the sinners. While biblical translation proves difficult, most scholars agree that Abaddon's powers are limited. Revelation chapter 9 verse 4 says, "And it was commanded of them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men who have not the seal of God in their foreheads." Moreover, Revelation chapter 9 verse 5 states that Abaddon and his team were not given the power to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. But still, Abaddon's authority to constantly torment mankind is unnerving. Revelation chapter 9 verse 6 shows how bad the torture will get. In those days, men will seek death, but will not find it. They shall long to die, but death will flee from them. While rabbinic teaching considers Abaddon a place, they also identify Abaddon as one of the angels of death. In Job chapter 28 verse 22, Abaddon is mentioned together with death when Abaddon is first given the personification of a being and thus not a place. A few biblical translations say that Abaddon is a subordinate of Satan and not an angel. While there isn't much about Satan in the Torah, his existence is present in the text. Human beings who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads will suffer at the hands of Satan and his demons on the judgment day. While Satan is the primary antagonist of God, Abaddon is the leader of the demons sent to torture humankind. Some biblical interpretations even treat Satan and Abaddon synonymously. However, there are many other points that contradict this. Revelation chapter 9 verse 11 states, "They have over them as the king of the abyss." This verse arrives after God unleashed the locusts to torture earth during the end of days. Some people interpret this verse to mean that the locusts have no king. So, while Lucifer is the king of hell, Abaddon leads the locusts unleashed to torture those who do not bear the seal of God. In Jewish and Christian traditions, Abaddon is not only the personification of a fallen angel, but also an actual place. Abaddon is said to mean a place of destruction. In Job chapter 31 verse 12, it is said, "For it will be a fire that consumes to Abaddon." And the Apostle John writes in Revelation chapter 9, "After the fifth angel sounds his trumpet, a star falls from heaven and opens the bottomless pit. A storm of smoke arises, and from the smoke, a plague of locusts emerge to torment, but not to kill, men who lack the seal of God on their foreheads." Some believers insist that it's possible Abaddon is merely another word for hell. This leads to the conclusion that Abaddon just describes a place of destruction and chaos where Satan is the leader and Abaddon is his kingdom. This assertion could be because of this passage from Job chapter 31 verse 12, where Abaddon is described as a place of fire. However, in Psalms chapter 88 verse 11, we read, "Will your loving kindness be declared in the grave, your faithfulness in Abaddon?" But it's also in Job where Abaddon first gets considered as a conscious being. In Job chapter 28 verse 22, Abaddon can speak and hear, and states of Abaddon and death, only a rumor of it has reached our ears. Since Abaddon and Job are both personified with death in multiple texts, Gnostic documents assert that Abaddon was present at the time of the resurrection of Jesus Christ at the tomb. In the Gospel of Bartholomew, we learn that when Jesus died, Abaddon approached him in the underworld. Jesus laughed, and this terrified Abaddon and his sons. Then, when Jesus rose from the dead, Abaddon and his son, Pestilence, strived to protect the underworld to prevent Jesus from leaving. However, Jesus had already left hell, leaving behind 3 souls: Cain, Judas, and Herod. While Abaddon is highly controversial in Judaism and Christianity, he retains his terror. The role he plays as the torturer of those who stray from the path of righteousness contrasts with the Christian view of a merciful and all-loving God. How can God create humanity and love it endlessly, only to unleash a horror such as that of Abaddon? This seems rather confusing. In Revelation, it is not clear who will be marked astray and hence save them from the tortures of Abaddon. The early church fathers considered the Gnostic doctrines as heresy. For example, Jacob Brucker, in his critical history of philosophy, speaks of a sect of Oriental philosophers in the 1st century who corrupted the whole world with their worst doctrines. Here, Jacob Brucker was referring to Gnostic beliefs about Abaddon. Looking further into the etymology of the word Abaddon, we find that the Hebrew word for the English word Apollo is Abbadon, which is spelled normally today as Abaddon. In Hebrew, this will read as Abbadon, which means a place of destruction or abyss, and Mut or Mot, which is the Semitic word for death. Interestingly, in the theology of the Phoenicians from Sankoniatho, it says, Mot also means mud, which some call las, but others the petrification of a watery mixture. And from this sprang all the seed of the creation and the generation of the universe. The word Abaddon is also compounded of the two words Abba, which means father, papa, or leader, and Don or Dan, which means Lord, Master, or Chief. This is why Jesus, who was a Jew, told his people, the Jews, "Ye are of your father, the devil." The Christian angel of the bottomless pit, who is known as the Antichrist, is actually the same angel of the Gnostics, who we also know anciently as the Pythia priesthood of the Delphic oracles. These are the Gnostics who had carved in stone on their temples, "Know thyself and nothing in excess." A historical man connected to this history was a Samaritan named Simon Magus, who was also known by the surname Satan. The early church fathers called him the first Gnostic. The word Satan is derived from the ancient Greek Satan and the Hebrew Satan, which means adversary, the accuser, to show enmity, oppose, or to plot against. All these meanings are derived from the root word Satan, which means one who opposes or obstructs. The followers of Simon Magus, who was also known as Simon Satan, were the Gnostics. We know this because the Gnostics were called the sons of Satan. We should also add that another surname for Simon was Peter, which means father or a cock. The historical home of the Gnostics is the holy island of Crete at the city of Knossos or Knossos and the holy mountain Mount Ida. Mount Ida is the original ancient home of the Judeans, which is the tribe of Judah. Of all places, this mountain is near Samaria Gorge, which is the same area identified as one of the homes of Apollo. In Homer's Iliad, in the hymn to Apollo, which Apollo is introduced conducting a band of Cretans who came from the city of Knossos, where he chose his first priests. Crete also happens to be the home of Pergamon, where Satan's throne is. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 12 to 13, it's written, "To the angel of the church in Pergamon, write, These are the words of him who has the sharp double-edged sword. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, not even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives." The ancient Cretan city of Pergamon, or Pergamon, was home to one of the 7 churches written about by St. John in the book of Revelation. This was the original uncorrupted church, the Gnostic Church of Christ, that later became the seat of the Antichrist, or throne of Satan, and the official home of Apollo, also known as Apollyon, the Delphic oracles, and his Pythia clergy of the bottomless pit. The name Pythia is derived from Pytho, which is derived from Puthian, which means to rot. The word refers to the sticky smell of the decompositing of the body of the monstrous python after she was slain by Apollo. After Apollo's victory over the serpent, that is, the devil, and its rotting body was brought into subjugation in the pit, we can safely say that Apollo becomes the angel of the bottomless pit. For that reason, Apollo is the destroyer of chaos and evil. He is also the chief supreme court judge of humans, who worship the devilish creation, that is, the golden calf. Apollo's arrows smites these people to the place of judgment and purgatory, where the souls of the dead belong. This is why we find Apollo, often symbolically represented, holding a harp, a shield, and a bow and arrows. These three items signify his threefold power on earth, where he is called Liber Pater, and in heaven, where he is called Sol, or the second sun, and in hell, where he is called Apollo, or Apollyon. Also, unsurprisingly, the harp and the bow are both ancient national symbols for Crete and some of the many nations they founded, including Ireland. If you have been looking for the Gnostic icons, they have been around since time immemorial. Apollo's harp does not represent music per se, but harmony in government, that is, temporal and spiritual. What we mean is the marriage of the church and the state. This harmony brings true law and order, as Apollo uses his bow and arrow to rightfully punish the locusts of the earth, that is, the people or the fallen angels or the apostates. This is how the Masons help bring ordo ab chaos, that is, order from chaos. Therefore, it is no wonder that the high degrees of Freemasonry mention Apollyon as their Masonic Grand Master. Christian and academic scholars continue to debate who Abaddon truly is, with ideas ranging from the Antichrist to Satan himself. There are even people within Christianity that believe Abaddon is an angel of God, and thus his destructive acts are the will of God. Some even claim that Jesus took the name Abaddon after his resurrection. Abaddon's place in history is even more interesting if one references the Gnostic texts. The manuscripts claim that not only was Abaddon present at Christ's resurrection, but he was integral in the creation of humankind. These ancient texts speak of Abaddon's role as an angel tasked with both collecting the material from which God made Adam and guarding the earth. His mandate also involved gathering adoration for himself, punishing both humans and spirits, and ushering souls to the valley of Josaphat during the Last Judgment. While the details of who or what Abaddon is vary by region and time period, the common thread in all of his interpretations is that Abaddon is destruction, whether it is righteous, indifferent, or malevolent. Now that you know more about Abaddon, it is easier to understand the intricacies of religion. A very good point to ponder over is the relationship between kindness and cruelty. What is it really that makes God tell his creations of his forgiveness, love, and care, and yet subject them to an infinity of horror at the hands of a creature like Abaddon?